Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear brothers and sisters, welcome to the Muslim Circle Ramadan Lockdown webinar, where we feature daily reminder every single day throughout Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, we've had so many already, and we've been great. We've had great beneficial tazkiras and reminders every night, alhamdulillah. My name is Brother Deen. I am your host and moderator for today. And tonight we have once again our pleasure to host Shaykh Gabriel Al Romaani. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. How are you?
Salatullah, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Mashallah, looking good in your living room, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys are new to the Muslim Circle, where have you been? This is our 28th or 29th talk, I believe. Alhamdulillah. Like I said, we've had many speakers from all across the world. And if you missed, or if you want to check out all the previous videos, go to our Facebook and YouTube, and you'll find all the talks on there. And this one also will be posted on our pages. Just look for Muslim Circle O on Facebook and YouTube. A little bit about the Shaykh. Shaykh is the co-founder of ICRAA, Iqra.org, an organization based in North America, I believe, in the US. Is that right, Shaykh, or Europe?
Yeah, it's North America.
North America, yes. And he was born in Romania. After studying Islam for a few years, he converted in 2003. He is a graduate of the Mishka University of North America, where he completed his bachelor's in Islamic studies. Earlier, he graduated with a double major in biology and psychology, mashallah, and also graduated from the Faculty of Education in Canada. He studied Islam with various well-known scholars, and has been active in the da'wah scene for more than 15 years, and has appeared in numerous TV shows such as Iqra TV, Huda TV, Sharjah TV, and The Deen Show. He is the author of a book called The Journal of a New Muslim in 2018, and published many articles. He is now the principal of Al-Hamra school here in Malaysia. And without any further ado, I will pass on the virtual floor to Shaykh Gabriel. Fadali, Shaykh.
Barakallah fiqh, jazakallah khair. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah. Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma alimna ma anfa'na wa anfa'na bima lamtana wa zidna ilm. Inshallah, I hope that in the next few minutes, we're going to be able to cover a very important topic that is, I would say, one of the most important topics that our Ummah is facing today. And hopefully I can shed some understanding on this issue. And as the brother mentioned, my background, where I'm coming from a non-Muslim background, first and foremost. I converted to Islam in 2003, went on to study Islam, and now here I am, 37 almost years old, alhamdulillah, with different projects, and traveled the world, about 40 countries now, alhamdulillah, Muslim countries. A lot of them work with different Muslim communities throughout the world. And I've tried to identify certain gaps and certain, empty spots that need to be filled, certain problems that we need to find solutions for in this ummah. If we claim that we are Muslims and we understand what Islam means, Islam is not a religion. Islam is the system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen for mankind to bring them out of the darkness into the light. This is what He wants us subhanahu wa ta'ala to do. It's not a religion amongst other religions as people think. Sadly, this kind of mentality has infiltrated the Muslim ummah. We are British Muslims, we are American Muslims, we are Canadian Muslims, we are Romanian Muslims, we are Malaysian Muslims. And that's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. He says, "Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas, ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhauna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah." You are the best nation. You, all of you, are the best nation, best ummah. And ummah includes every single Muslim who says, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, has the correct understanding of Islam and submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, does things according to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and strives to improve himself, makes tawbah, and so on, faces the Qibla, prays. I mean, there's a lot, big definition anyway. Alhamdulillah, we're over 2, maybe now 3 billion strong. But we are one. We are one ummah, one nation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is our Lord. And that has to be understood. Our aqidah has to be very clear with regards to that. But over these years of being a Muslim and studying and traveling the world, I noticed that people are slowly compromising their deen, compromising Islam. And there are reasons for that. And one of them is obviously the pressure that's being put on the Muslim Ummah to get in line with the 21st century reforms when it comes to religion, when it comes to everything. And that is, again, a big misunderstanding from the world even, because they treat Islam as a religion. Right? They treat Islam as a religion amongst other religions. Then it kind of lowered its status. So of course, people who don't believe in Islam, you're not going to expect them to treat it as the truth or the system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen for mankind. No, they're going to say it's just a religion who's trying to take over. They're trying to get their followers and whatnot. It's like Christianity, it's like Buddhism, like Hinduism, and all the other isms, right? But when you look at definition, see, things define themselves. When you look at what is the definition of a noun, okay? So then you'll find a definition for a noun. You look at the definition for a tower, okay? It's going to tell you what a tower is. You're going to look for a definition for a mobile phone. It's going to tell you what a mobile phone. So when you look for the definition of Islam, Islam explains itself and tells you exactly what it is. When you look at the definition of Christianity, Christianity itself explains what it is. Okay, that is just a religion. And other, philosophies around the world say that. Islam doesn't say that. Islam says that this is Inna Deen Inda Allahi al-Islam. The deen, or the path with Allah, with God, the Creator, is submission in Islam. So traveling the world and dealing with different communities, I noticed, and even introspecting with myself, living in the West for quite some time and moving around, the different pressures that have been put on our communities are forcing people to compromise their faith. Okay, if we go back, if we rewind 50 years, things were different. If we rewind 100 years, things were different. If we rewind 500 years, things were different. We rewind enough to the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, we find that things were different. And again, it doesn't require like my opinion, it's not about my opinion. In Islam, it should never be about your opinion, even though people do have opinions with certain things, but it's not about your opinion. It's a fundamental of Islam here that you need to look at in history to contextualize the argument. You look at the life of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, you look at the life of the Sahaba, if we believe that this is the correct path, right? And most of these 3 billion people, that's what they believe. So when you look at that and you say, okay, this is the best generation. How did they understand Islam? They understood Islam to be the ultimate thing. They lived and died for Islam. قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايِ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ فَبِذَلِكَ أُمِرْتُ وَأَنَا أَوَّلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Say, indeed, my prayer, my sacrifice, my living, my dying, everything is for Allah, Lord of the worlds, right? And this, I made no partners with Him, and this is what I've been commanded. I'm the first to believe and to submit to Islam. So this is how it was their life. It was their life. Compared, fast forward 1,400 plus years, people say it's a religion amongst other religions. The Muslims themselves say it's a religion amongst other religions. Go back again, let's jump to the other side. 1,400 plus years ago, time of the Prophet Sahaba, they are planning to basically liberate the world from the shackles of man-made systems to the liberty of and freedom of worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So when we look at the 2 objectives and what they used to do and how they used to treat it and how we treat it, we find a major difference. People say it's not the same times and this and that. I agree, it's not the same time. But Islam was not sent for a certain time. Islam was sent forever. Okay, it was sent for human beings, for everything. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. It's for everyone, for every time, for every place, for every application. But the question is, do Muslims really believe that? And how do they act based on that? And so on. People need to understand that Islam is not just a religion. Islam is the solution to mankind's problems. Islam is the solution. I always say that, not because I want to, because when you read the Quran and you find, so what's the solution to polytheism? It's monotheism. What's wrong with polytheism, people are saying? Well, you're taking the right of God, who created you, and giving it to others than God. So of course it's wrong. Okay, and not to make sense, not to make sure that it's not doesn't make sense. It conditions people to have senseless arguments in life in general, which of course is going to affect humanity. Because if someone is willing to reduce himself to that thought that a rat can be worshipped, or a monkey, or anything like that, or a statue for that matter, or a picture, then obviously their intellectual faculties are very limited in terms of what they allow. It's not that there's something wrong with them. It's just that that's what they've been constricted. It's not their fault, actually. It's the fault of the system that they're constricted to, and it's being pushed on, and is being conditioned through education and through culture and so on. So these people are suffering, and Islam liberates them. People think that Islam is coming to oppress people and to take over. Islam is coming to liberate people, to free them from the shackles of irrationality, from man-made religions, man-made systems, which if you smash enough into someone's head and you keep drilling it, they will believe it, right? The repetitive effect in psychology, people do start believing it after some time, right? And then the world suffers, because here's a least rational person now might occupy a certain position in the world that's going to make a difference and take some very important decisions in this world. And it's going to affect the world and the way the world looks at things, and it's going to cause problems, right? So Islam liberates humanity from that, liberates them from the shackles of ignorance, of man-made systems, and so on, and brings them into the light of God. This is how the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba treated Islam. It was a mission. It was something to liberate humanity. It was something to save humanity. While today it is just, we're okay, we're Muslim, everything else, whatever, it doesn't matter. We just stick to what we have. Everyone is okay, right? And just that mentality, it's actually a disservice to humanity at large. It is a disservice to humanity at large. So comparing the time of the Prophet ﷺ with today's time, huge contradiction, okay, huge contradiction. So why would people, as I said, be watering down Islam? Well, many reasons, but one of them is, of course, pressure that people think that, okay, Islam is there to take over the world and whatnot, and so on. So the Muslims get very defensive, and of course, the political situation around the world, global political situation with Islam always in the middle, the Middle Eastern problems, right? Islam equals the Middle East problem pretty much, right? People just step away and give up Palestine, give up everything, and just kind of let it be, right? So if you see, it's kind of irrational. I mean, it's like, okay, step away, let us take over. Wait a second, who gave you the right to take over in the first place, right? Let the best man win, kind of thing. Be it an intellectual debate, be it a political debate, be it whatever it is. Disclaimer: we're not calling anyone to fight or kill each other or anything like that. No, that's not. We always give this disclaimer. We're academically analyzing the situation. Who gave you the right for you to lead? No one, right? Unless you're saying it's a God-given right, in which case that we're also claiming that, right? So then may the best man win, the best argument, the best proof. And we believe as Muslims that we do have the best proof, and we put it forward. So no, we don't worship rats, we don't worship human beings, we don't worship statues, we don't think that a race is the best, actually, like the Ben Israel thing, for example. Right? We think that the closest person to God is the one who has the best heart and the cleanest heart and the purest heart, and the one who fears him the most. So that gives fair play to black, white, brown, and everyone in between, right? It doesn't matter if you're Chinese or Indian or Bengali or whatever you are, you have a fair chance at earning God's love and protection. All you have to do is work in yourself and get better at that, and obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and do your best to help people, which is an international or world or universal system, right? With the topping of not associating partners with him, and making sure they follow and obey the rules and the laws. So Muslims have been at the table for the longest time, and now they're not. They're kind of under the table, sadly, but they've been pushed and punched to be under the table. And my question is to Muslims always like, where are intellectuals? Where are the people who can stand up? Where are the people who can highlight some of these issues? Again, not to create hatred. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says very clearly that He has made us, He has made us tribes and nations so we may know each other. The best amongst you is the one who's the closest in piety and righteousness to God. Right? It's not about let's take over and fight and this and that. No, it's about who's got the best system. Who's got the best system? Islam has the best system. Oh, brother, you're being biased. Wait a second. Let us analyze it in a couple of minutes, okay? World problems. Interest. Where right now with COVID, because of the interest system-based, economic system, it collapsed. It collapsed. It's because interest rates. It's because inflation. It's because there's no value behind the paper money. Okay, the fiat currency has nothing behind it, right? People say gold, this is nothing. Everyone knows that it's just paper money. So yeah, it's a big problem. Okay, Islam solves that. How? No riba. Okay, because loans and help and giving people money, it's from the door of helping someone. It's not from profiting from their back. Sadly, the interest philosophy is to profit. Okay, that's not Islam. So Islam solves that problem. Is it a problem? Yeah, it's a problem. Look around the world. Number two, ethics and morals, sexuality. You find that the world is plagued with, homosexuality, lesbianism, pornography, prostitution, all these things. Has the world solved that problem? No. People keep talking on the news about child molestations and, modern day sex trade for slaves and whatnot, all kinds of things, right? Southeast Asia, there's sex slaves and sex trade and, selling human beings, human trafficking, right? But I mean, the modern system has failed to address that, and it has failed to deal with that. Okay, Islam solves that. Islam has very strict punishments for that and solves that. And those punishments are usually done in public to deter people, and they do deter people. Of course, because the world sees it as inhumane, so they're never going to solve this problem because for them it's inhumane, right? So the criminals, they say, good job, it's inhumane, which means that it's going to be very hard to catch us. It's going to deter people least and least, and it's going to keep encouraging criminals to keep going on. Islam gets rid of that, right? The issue of promiscuity. Islam calls for marriage and only marriage, okay? So that allows a father to know his child and mother to know who is her father, the father of her child, keeps the family union together. But Islam solved that problem. Modern day systems don't solve that problem. They're actually encouraging women to be independent, not to get married, to go out and work. And then they say, well, the kids are messed up. Why they're messed up? Or they don't even have kids anymore. And then the future of the world is confused. You got Generation X, gender confusion, and so on. Humanity has never been more confused than in 2020. Humanity has never been more confused in the history of mankind more than they are in this century. And this is a fact. Just look around. National Geographic just came right now with this gender revolution. Our boys are thinking they're princesses, and our girls are thinking they're hulks. You know what I mean? They're trying to masculinize females and feminize males. So there'll be no difference between men and women. But Allah says that the women and men are not the same. He didn't create them the same. Anyone who looks from a scientific perspective, their DNA, their biological, makeup, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So again, people are pushing and playing with these things, and they're saying that we're in a free world. We're not in a free world. We're in a slave world. Okay, we're slaves to our desires. We're slaves to the people who run the system, which is very, very small, amount of people. And humanity is being fooled. Humanity is being fooled into falling into these things. So Islam solved these problems. So why do people have a problem with Islam? Okay, drinking and driving. How many accidents? How many people die from liver failure because of alcohol? Alcoholics. How many abuse cases? Family and spousal abuse comes from alcohol, not from Islam, not because, Surah 4, verse 34 in Islam, not because of that. That's not where abuse comes from. Abuse comes from alcohol, from drug abuse, and so on. And the men start beating their women, and the women start beating the men too. Okay, there's many incidents of that happening as well. So, but Islam solves that because alcohol is not allowed, right? Then the issue of, for example, COVID, okay, viruses, and Islam solves that issue with tahara and proper. People don't. I used to work in a gym. I used to clean the gym, and I used to take statistics. I was at that time taking statistics classes, and I was studying and doing my research. So I was just interested to see how many people wash their hands. About 7 or 8 out of 10 don't wash their hands after they use the washroom. They go and use, dumbbells in the gym. Right? Islam puts a huge emphasis. At-tahara shatrul iman. So Islam solves that problem. right? And there's just so many things that Islam solves. Smoking, right? How many people die from cancer, lung cancer? Islam, considers that haram. It wouldn't work in the Muslim, in proper Muslim environment. Oppression, corruption, and so on. Theft, right? In Islam, we know everyone kind of criticizes Islam, how tough it is on these rules. But the reality is that when people see these rules being applied and criminals being punished, they're gonna think twice, thrice, maybe 10 times before doing it. While today, well, what I get 5 years, 2 years, if I get a good lawyer, I have enough money, he can sneak around the law and get me out, no problem. I can win the case. It's not like that. See, Islam solves the problems of the world. The thing is that the world doesn't like the problems to be solved, or it seems that because certain people have pushed huge agenda of demonizing Islam, and we all know that. Just look at the news, just look at everything. It's not my opinion. It's not like, oh, Gabriel, you become extremist or talking against this people. No, I open the TV, starting from 9/11, even before, the movies, the series, what's available on Netflix, for example, with regards to Islam, other than Ertugrul, okay, Black Crows, blah, 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 ISIS this, Al-Qaeda that. It's all people here. And we wonder why people hate Islam. Well, people have an issue with Islam because of this propaganda. So the thing that's meant to liberate them, people look at it as a threat because that's how it's being given to them. That's how it's being packaged to them. So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. The existing system that they are in right now is oppressing them, and they don't know it. But they're being kept in check by fear of the thing that would liberate them. And this is a very common and old strategy in the books of taking over. Christopher Columbus, that's what he did with the natives, right? He demonized them, dehumanized them. Africa, the same thing. People are dehumanized. They're not real human. They're black. They're different color. They're not really, they're savages. So it's very easy for people to destroy them, right? Because they didn't feel like they're killing humans. Same thing with the Muslims, right? These are not real. We're savages. We're this and that. 9/11. So people are left with two things. Those who civilize themselves, supposedly, they go to the Western countries. They become British Muslims. Yeah, I'm British, but my religion, I practice it once in a while. And with shame sometimes and changing the deen, they'll say, no, these people are not real Muslim. We are the real Muslim. Who's the real Muslim? The one who drinks once in a while, the one who sells curry and whiskey in the same place, because that's the national dish of the UK. It's like curry, right? And they drink it with some hard drinks, right? And the Pakistanis don't, a lot of times don't mind selling it. They're the ones running these places. And if you ask them, bro, what's going on? Well, it's like, these are kuffar. I'm just selling, it's my religion, but I'm not doing it. So people are picking and choosing, and they are, sitting there and having, a big contradiction. And their kids are watching it. And the new generation right now, for example, in the UK or in Canada, is even more confused. Like their parents kind of slowly started allowing things left and right. And now their kids grew up, literally they are part and parcel of that culture, only with the religion that's Islam, with names that are Muslim, and many of them will leave that, will drop that as soon as they are independent. I've worked with converts, I've worked with apostates for the past 15 years. I know what I'm talking about, okay? Turnover rate for people who convert to Islam is over 50%. Okay, and also the apostasy rate is very high. People keep saying, because on YouTube, Shaykh Al Yasin gave Shahada to 500 people, Allah Akbar, Takbir. Islam is the fastest growth religion in the world, true? But it's also the fastest exited religion in the world. Why? Again, because people don't understand it, because there's a lot of propaganda against it. And the same people who come to Islam, then they'll find billion websites and articles and videos against it. They get confused, they don't have the knowledge, they leave Islam, right? So there's a huge attack on Islam. Main problem is that the Muslims are not getting it. They think that we think we're doing dawah by our lectures. Yeah, we're doing dawah. Some people are coming to Islam, alhamdulillah, converting. Great. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give. He is the one who doesn't need us in the end. He's going to bring people to Islam anyway. But the issue is that we're not doing what we should be doing. I believe, I know, as a convert who has gone through the system and has looked from the outside, I've seen people slowly watering things down. people slowly changing things. And to me, someone who's coming from that side of the fence, to see people jumping that side to the side that I left, jumping towards there, it's quite alarming. Like, I remember there was some institutes that are very popular, and when I became Muslim, 2003, they were really making their debuts, and they're so strong. And our communities were warning against them because they're too harsh and too strong, and just Quran, Sunnah, abide by the rules of Islam. And, you know, they're not saying anything wrong in terms of anything else, but they're just calling people to stick to the Quran, Sunnah, to really practice Islam, not to compromise, to be proud of their faith, to give da'wah. And then slowly, as the years passed by and different political climates changed, slowly things started happening. Okay, now this is allowed. Oh, Sheikh so-and-so came up with this very, problematic fatwa. But then within a month or two, everyone kind of jumped on the bandwagon and said, yeah, it's okay. And then they started overlooking that. Then some of them split, and some of them did. Slowly, as I kept taking their courses and studying, and I found people were compromising more and more and changing. And they'll say, the times are different, we have to change, it's ijtihad and so on. But in reality, I'm not talking about, whether in vitro fertilization is halal or not. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like proper principles of Islam, right? That the Prophet talked about and should be the core of our foundation, right? So people were changing. I'm not naming people, I'm not naming groups, but I think everyone who's been around for some time, I've been giving dawah for, as I said, about 16 years now. I've been one of the first YouTubers actually to be publishing, YouTube videos. I've had debates with Christians, with Jews, with different cultures, different, religions, Ahmadiyya, Shia, you name it. And I've seen the effect that the changes have had on the ummah. And for me to come from the outside, it's very alarming, because when we convert to Islam, we want to make sure that this is the truth, and we believe it's the truth. And when we see the people who are raised into Muslim countries compromising their faith, then it's alarming. It is alarming. Then the behavior, of course, let's say the lack of manners and so on, a lot of converts get alarmed by that, because they read one thing in the Sunnah and the Quran, and then they go to a Muslim country for whatever reason, and they want to study there, they want to work there, they want to perform Umrah, they want to do this, they want to do that, and then they find the behavior, the Muslims, like away from that, and they say, but they're so strong, Islam, ready for Salah. But the contradiction is apparent. That's because we've reduced Islam to prayer, having a prayer mat with us, growing a beard, using a miswak, having a hijab, sometimes niqab, and that's it. A lot of times it has happened. Alhamdulillah for the ones who are still sticking to their deen. But in the end of the day, there's compromisation, and because there's pressure. And the Muslim Ummah is not proud of Islam anymore. We're not the ones creating. I always say we haven't created Facebook. We haven't created Netflix. We're not the ones who created Zoom. We're not the ones who, and we're using that platform right now. We're not the ones who created Instagram. We're not the ones who created McDonald's and Apple and all these things, right? We're not the ones. I mean, if you ask right now, what have the Muslims actually created that the world really is using and in need? There are very few things, if we can find anything, right? So we are consuming and taking, and with that culture, it comes into us and it changes us, and we don't even know it. We don't even realize that it does change us. And at some point, slowly, we're not going to recognize it. Right now, I was just reading an article the other day. Malaysia should be ready to embrace LGBTQ community, right? And how did the article even make it in there in the newspaper? It's crazy. But that's what it is, and they're very aggressive. And because we don't have intellectuals, we don't have Muslims who are proud of their faith, who are jealous for their faith in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's going to push in. It's going to go through. Give it another few years, you're going to have people marrying each other. You're going to have all kinds of stuff. And slowly, if you're going to talk against it, you're going to be criminalized. If you're going to say anything, and that's how they do it. They're very smart. They enter with the propaganda and with the law. And the Muslims don't know how to handle any one of them, right? We don't have our own propaganda. We're not good enough at that. You cannot compete with Netflix. All the respect to all the sheikhs who have millions of followers and do nice and funny jokes and nice posting. Cannot compare. All the Muslims, pretty much, in general. You can say there's exceptions, of course, those who cannot afford and so on. But in general, educated Muslims around the world, Western countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, you name it, okay, Middle East, will have Netflix. You cannot compare. Cannot compare any of our YouTube videos with Netflix. It is a great, it is a great attempt from our sheikhs and the dais. They're doing their best, but cannot be compared. Cannot be compared with the podcasts. I was just recently listening to an interview how even above iTunes, there's SoundCloud and others who are pushing and investing so much money. And the guy was talking about how he's a porn creator. He's a pornographical creator, and now he's taking it to podcasts, And he said, because podcasts paid me, they basically sponsor the thing. Why? Because they want to destroy the culture. I mean, they're investing in destroying the culture. They have an agenda. They have clear-cut goals. While the Muslims are currently doing things haphazardly. We're living on YouTube. We're living on social media. And on top of, we're kind of happy because we get some lectures here and there, but we're not realizing that on the other side, from the back, we're being stabbed like there's no tomorrow, and we're being changed. And our kids are, farther and farther away from us, and we are farther and farther away from our parents. And slowly the generation gap is becoming greater and greater. And sooner or later, we won't even recognize ourselves. Sooner or later, already it's happening, our own people, because that's the whole point, right? When the people come from the outside, it's going to be very difficult for us not to oppose them. But when your own people, having your name, looking like you, saying the same things like you, are going to say, no, bro, you're being wrong. You're not tolerant enough. You're not free enough. You're not democratic enough. And then the more and more, so the non-Muslims say, see, well, your own people are saying this. So what's wrong with you? You're the one. The problem is with you. You're an extremist. You're a terrorist. So people are going to form that. You're going to probably get boycotted, taken off, maybe jailed, and so on. So anyone, right? And that's what happened. When we look at the story of Lut alayhi salam, right? What did they say? Take them, we're going to stone them. These are These are people who love to purify themselves. So purity has become as something negative for these people, right? Someone wants to get married today, in polygamy, for example, polygyny, and people will smash them. Same person, if he does zina or has a girlfriend on top of his wife, bro, leave him alone. That's between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the same, it's his thing. It's not my business, and so on. It's not our business, right? But as soon as he gets married, people go online, they start exposing, they start putting things, right? What happened with, different, sheikhs and so on. Tabloid nation, the Muslims have jumped on the tabloid thing. They've taken upon themselves to expose each other, right? And they don't know that they're eating the dead flesh of their brothers, and they're, inna ba'd Allahi ithm. A lot of times not grounded evidence. I'm not giving an excuse to those who are doing wrong. I'm just saying the approach of the Muslims. So your own people will be fighting you. Your own people will be going against Sharia. Right now you have sisters, mashallah, without hijab, preaching Islam pretty much, man. Talking and representing Islam, right? And it's my choice, right? Who cares? I do what I want. And then people start following them, and then slowly change. But look, she's so good. She's so nice. And then look, my hijabi neighbor is such a bad woman. So hijab doesn't make a difference. No, it's not about hijab that makes a difference. Hijab is just obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's your heart that makes a difference. You should have hijab and have a good heart. You know what I mean? It's not either or. Right? So there's a lot of problems that the ummah is not able to see. And sadly, it seems that our own preachers are not able to highlight and not willing to highlight. Every time we try to reach out to them and say, we're scared, it's difficult where we live, we're going to cause problems, I'm not saying, I'm always giving this disclaimer. When no one is asking you to hurt anyone, no one is asking you to call to be hurt. We're just saying, let's have a debate. Let's have an intellectual discussion as to why we believe this is incorrect, why we believe this is wrong, why we should follow this path. That's it. But no, you're being censored and boycotted by your own Muslims themselves. Right? So that's where we're left. So people have and are compromising their deen. And it's changing very, very, very fast. Before, it used to be people wanted to live in Muslim countries. The Ummah wanted to be together. Right now, people, you can pay them. They will not leave non-Muslim countries. They will stay there, and they'll look down upon Muslim countries. Why? Because it's bad in Muslim countries. They never lived in Muslim countries. Maybe they visited here and there, and they just had a preconception of, hating Muslim countries. I've lived in Muslim countries for a lot of my life, more than 10 years living. I'm talking about not visiting, living. And I'm coming from a non-Muslim background, and I believe this is much better than anything else, with all the problems, with all the issues, right? But, people have convinced people that it's not the case. Stay where you are, you're chilling, don't worry. Everything is good. So the wealth and the resources, the smartness of the ummah is being distributed all over the world, and other people are benefiting. So yes, we're divided. Yes, we have different ideas. Everyone's going in a different direction. And slowly, the gap is becoming larger and larger. We are not an ummah anymore. People don't consider themselves part of the ummah anymore. We are nationalities. We are what our passport says. Ethnically, we can say, okay, this, like the Christians share, different ethnicities. We're the same, pretty much, right? And people will act on that. So it's been a big change, no doubt. We're seeking appreciation of the world with other things other than Islam. While when we look at it, people could care less before as to what happens. Yes, they built the world and they made sure they perfected. You cannot compare what happened in Cordoba, what happened in Andalus, what happened in Baghdad, how they used to take care of the place and the people and so on. But they were doing it for the sake of Allah. Today, people are competing in dunya, and they're not doing it for the sake of Allah, and they're not to help people, because people are starving, because people are dying, because the gap between the rich and the poor is huge. And the Prophet ﷺ, Sahaba, even the Khulafa after, were trying to minimize that. Zakah, Sadaqah, everything was paid. And sadly, only when people started becoming greedy that these problems happened. And it led to the problems in the economical system, in the poverty, people not paying zakah. Zakah is not collected now by the state anymore. People used to be, pretty much, you could be forced to pay zakah. Now, if you want it, you pay. If not, no one comes after you. The people are suffering. It doesn't belong to you. That money doesn't belong to you, right? So Islam solves, as I said, all these problems, but we're seeking izzah with something else. And I think I'm gonna kind of wrap it up here, that Umar Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said, نحن قوم عزنا الله بالإسلام فما يبتغي العزة بغيره أذلنا الله. We are a people that Allah has given us honor with Islam. Whoever seeks honor with other than Islam, Allah will put them down. Allah will debase them. Isn't that what's happening? Yeah, we build big towers. Yeah, we build big places. We import things. We have money because Allah has blessed us with oil and so on. But in the end, we humiliate ourselves by not following Islam. We are humiliated. We are under the table. People still think we're savages. They still think we're not in the 21st century yet. They still think we're behind, that we should reform, that we're terrorists, that we're this, that we're that. And that is totally unacceptable, right? But because they don't care less, they know, they can see that we're not the ones who produce these buildings and these things. We've imported the workforce, we've imported the materials, we've imported it. The only thing is that we had that somehow on our land, oil was there. God has put it there. It's a big ni'mah. Allah will question us about it, how we used it. It's not about, we didn't really create anything, to be honest. So, but the way the world looks at us, right? It's like we're a charity case. We need to be saved. We need to be saved, and whether you like it or not, they're going to come save us and give us their system. This is what's happening. This is exactly what's happening. It's been shoved down the throat of the Muslims. Education system. Who's the best in education? Is it a Muslim system? No. It's Cambridge. It's American Common Core Standards. It's not a Muslim. Who's running the health services? Okay, World Health Organization, which is being sued now by many countries because of their problem with how they address the COVID and their overreaction and scaring and locking down the whole world, which caused huge financial problems. 60 million people or more are going to be in chance of they're starving. They're in chance of dying from starvation. Okay, World Health Bank has announced today 60 million people. Compare that to the 300,000 something that have died from COVID. It's a big difference, right? But who's controlling these things? Muslims? No. Who's controlling finance and economy? Riba, not interest, not Muslims. Who's controlling everything? The media, not Muslim. So where are the Muslims? That's my question, right? So yes, not only are we compromising our faith, but we've also lost this dunya. So as Allah says, خَسِرُوا الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Lost this life and we're in danger of losing the hereafter as well. This is the way it's I see it with my experience and the evidence that I provided. I want people to think. I'm not getting people. I'm not getting things out of my stomach. I want people to think. I want them to look at the evidence. I want to look at the statistic that I've just given. I want them to look at the reality around. Look at the economy-based system. Look at what we're faced with. Look at the ethics and the morals. Look at the oppression and the corruption. Why isn't the current model fixing that? Islam is not ruling the world, guys. Come on, people think it's Islam ruling the world, and then they blame Islam for the failure of the modern world. Why is it not succeeding? This is my question. I'll leave you with that. Barakallah fikum.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh, mashallah. That was very heavy, somewhat heavy. Keeps me been asking my question in my head. Like, I really agree with your point where you say when in this time and age where we are constantly being challenged, it's not so much, to me personally, I guess, it's not so much the non-Muslims that are challenging you or saying that, oh, you know, your religion is backwards, etc. It's like your own people saying that, yo, you're too strict, or you're too this, or you're too that, which is, like you said, you know, it's quite sad and it's quite heartbreaking. Allah mustaan. Okay, brothers and sisters, alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair for tuning in. If you have just tuned in or you missed part of the talk, don't worry, the talk will be available on our Facebook and YouTube channels as well, Muslim Circle O. Now we've come to the Q&A part. If you're tuning in on Zoom, please, if you have any questions, fill in the Q&A section down at the bottom of your screen. If you're on Facebook, put them into the comment section, and I will hopefully, inshallah, I will try my best to answer all of them, to ask all of them, inshallah. So Sheikh, we got a couple of questions already. Well, okay, why do you think a lot of Muslims are giving excuses for people committing zina while bashing men marrying more than one wife in a legally Islamic way? Sorry? Sheikh, you're muted. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, if you guys go to my Instagram at Al Romaani, maybe you can share it with them. I've started a series on polygyny. Today I posted at least 2, and long one especially. And I'm addressing those things, taboo things that people want to talk about. See, people are okay when it comes to just messing around. It's not a problem because there's no commitment. Islam requires commitment for marriage. Now, the marriage might work, might not work. That's not up to us. But Islam requires commitment. Because people might say, yeah, but a lot of times people get married and it ends up in divorce. Yeah. Also, people who are just, you know, monogamous couples also end up in divorce, and even boyfriend and girlfriends that break up most of the time. So it's not about that. It's about, the Prophet said the difference between halal and haram is 2 witnesses and mahar and, you know, a nikah. You know what I mean? So people are okay with sin because they say, you know, it's not your problem, it's not your issue. But when it comes to commitment, because they've been indoctrinated, you know, the opposing philosophy is practicing illegal polygamy anyway. Okay, the West is practicing illegal polygamy, being under the form of pornography, prostitution, strip clubs, going to the bars, you know, girls' night out, boys' night out. What happens, right? The whole bachelorettes and bachelorettes parties, dating, you know, having mistresses and so on. They're practicing illegal polygamy anyway. The problem is when things become legal, when things become, you know, commitment to it, then people have an issue, because people have an issue with commitment in the first place. As long as they're free to do whatever they please, no problem. Do what you want. And when it gets to becoming a bit more about commitment and about being serious, then we will criminalize it. It's going to be a problem.
Right. Second question is, where does the insecurity among Muslims come from when it comes to giving da'wah? We seem to be able to talk about idols, musicians, different thinkers, but when it comes to Islam, they're afraid to be perceived as preachers.
Right. Well, that's because we don't know Islam too well. We don't study it. We spend our time researching about these idols and singers and whatnot. We know their birthdays. We know the statistics, football players, basketball players, but we don't know anything about the Sahaba and the Prophet. So, of course, you're going to be scared and insecure to speak about something you're not convinced about. I still believe that a lot of the world is not convinced about Islam from the Muslims. They're just Muslim because that's what's been passed down to them. Islam is not about inheriting a name. Islam is about knowledge, belief, and practice. So knowledge leads to belief. Belief has to right away be connected to practice. So, of course, the world the Muslim Ummah is very insecure because if they go face to face with someone, that person is going to challenge them on the most basic fundamentals of Islam. And because we've been fed and indoctrinated, as I said, Facebook, Netflix, Instagram, all these things are, even the slightest, message will be recorded in our heads and it will change the way we think. We don't really realize that, but it has a huge effect on us. So when you're presented with an Islamic thought, you're going to say, no, this doesn't seem good. This is not right, because it causes this, there's a misalignment in the system. You understand? Your system is not Islam, actually. You're outwardly, we practice Islam, we pray, but inside, if you're going to talk about some very tough fundamentals of Islam, people are not going to accept it. And such as polygamy, as we just said right now, so many people are opposing this series of lectures. And I'm giving the evidence, and they keep saying stuff like, just pay attention now, it's very important. They keep saying things like, no, we should be more spiritual. So I respond right away, but the Prophet ﷺ was the most spiritual and he married more than one wife. Right? Oh no, but he was a prophet. Okay, I said, then the Sahaba, Abu Bakr, Uthman, Ali, Omar. These are the people that you guys say bedtime stories, if you do, to your kids about. These are the people that you name your kids after. Do you know anything about them? No. So I call it holier than the Prophet ﷺ syndrome. And it comes from ignorance, because people don't actually know them. So they expect them to be like, astaghfirullah, these like, I don't know what. But, one sister was commenting on one of my videos, and she said that it's not about lust. Marriage is not about lust. I said, what is it about then? I said, no, it's about spirituality. I said, wait a second. The Prophet ﷺ said, Ya ma'ashara shabab, oh boys, okay, get married because it helps you to control your lust and your chastity. I said, what is that? Oh no, show me. I said, okay, fine, okay. Another one. In Kitab Nikah, the Prophet ﷺ is walking on the street. He sees a beautiful woman. He goes to Zainab and approaches her. Okay, and he says, oh man, if you walk outside and you see a beautiful woman, go right to your wife, okay, and basically sleep with your wife to get rid of that desire. This is khayr khalqillah. I said, sister, come on, man. What do you mean that nikah and marriage is not? It's about love. But part of love. The problem is that the West has convinced the world that sex is different than love, right? Because they push the strip clubs, they push pornography, they push the sexual revolution. It's all about pleasure. No, and it's not separate. It's body and soul. It's spirit and body, right? It's spirituality and this dunya. It's together. So I said, look, you don't know anything about the Prophet ﷺ, and it can cause people a lot of problems because they say, it should be like this. And I say, are you holier than the Prophet? Are you holier than the Sahaba? No, you're not. And because we're ignorant, we start thinking that they were like this. And a lot of people get confused over Islam. And that's why they don't want to learn Islam. They just, ignorance is bliss. Yeah, I'm a Muslim, I pray, that's it. And that's why our society don't produce strong intellectual Muslims, workers who can stand up to what's coming, the big waves. The non-Muslims are getting very aggressive. This gender, neutral thing that they're trying to push is very aggressive. And the Muslims cannot respond. They don't have the ability, right? Because they don't know, because they don't understand these fundamental things at the core based on evidence. They make up their own kind of wishy-washy, down kind of version of Islam. The Prophet ﷺ was the most spiritual. So you give him evidence that there was desire. No. They'll start saying things that, no, I cannot accept this. You talk about Yusuf alayhi salam, that Allah says in the Quran, Surah 12, verse 34, that she desired him and he desired her. If it was not for the signs of Allah, he would have inclined towards her, right? So Allah saved him. You find a prophet here. No, this is not. So it's all about this idealistic, theoretical Islam that's kind of like Buddhism. It's just a philosophy. It has nothing to do with real life. When it comes to real application of life, no, it's not like that. No, it's my version. It's supposed to be like this. And you're like, okay, so how do you argue with the ignorant? You know what I mean? As I think it was Imam Shafi who said, I argue with the scholar and I won. I argue with the ignorant, I lost. You know, it's very difficult to argue with an ignorant person because they're just going to follow their desires.
So then, on that note, you also mentioned that okay, we as the Muslim Ummah, we are playing catch up to the Muslim to the Western world or to the non-Muslim world in terms of media consumption or just consumption in general. But when it comes to media consumption, how do we? I think I might have asked you the same question the other day. But anyways, like how do we then compete with? Like you say, today we consume media easily because it's made very tangible, it's made very visual, it's made very appealing.
Very attractive, yeah.
When it comes to tales of the Sahaba, it's tales, right? We're too afraid to even portray them or to act it out. Like we can't produce movies to the same quality as Hollywood or Netflix and so on. So then our youth are like, okay, these are storybooks for bed, but then in the morning I want my Netflix, right?
Exactly.
So how do we, like, I'm pondering.
This is the systematic. This is great. Great question. Allah Akbar. This is a systematic approach of destroying the Muslim Ummah, you know, because we're making things that are not haram as haram, right? Of course, portraying the Prophet ﷺ unanimously agreed that you shouldn't, okay? And when you talk about Sahabas, I think people start coming with different rational arguments that, oh, people are going to start thinking that this actor is the Sahaba. Who's going to think that this actor is Sahaba? It's about, no one thinks. I mean, some people might, but, you know, no one thinks that, you know, Brad Pitt is Achilles or something like that, right? But everyone loved Troy. You know what I mean? It was a tough movie about manhood and about ethics and about fighting, and people were so inspired. And, you know, it's just an example, right? But that's the thing, right? When Omar came, the series Omar came up, all the fatwas came, it's haram and so on, except for a few, right? For the people who really understand the maqasid and the objectives. There was a big debate over that. You know, that's why people don't want to produce. So you left the Muslims with looking at Troy and Thor and Justice League because it's in the fitrah. We want to see action. We want to look for inspiration, especially the boys. But no, you know, look at Anna and Elsa, you know, Frozen. Even the boys now are, you know, looking at Frozen because that's okay. Disney, no problem. Okay, you don't see the fatwas against that. But when we try to produce something to match this, because you have to give some alternatives, people bash it down as being haram right away. So yeah, we have to come up. It's very simple, bro. The ummah has a lot of money. You have a lot of wealthy people. You have datuks, you have sheikhs, you have so many. We're not having millions, brother. They're having billions. They don't know what to do with money, actually. So it's very simple, man. You start your own platform. Actually, you know, as Dan Pena says, you know, you just look at what works and then you copy it and you just change it, right? If you're not smart enough to think outside of the box, look at something and compete. You know what I mean? So Uber had, you know, a competition from Grab. Now Uber is not in Malaysia anymore. Grab took over, right? Someone has localized it, has put a flavor on it, boom, has changed a few things, has made it better. You know, take out the competition, right? But what they do, they just saw, hey, that's a great idea. Let me do it better. So we look at Netflix. Why can't we come with a Muslim flicks or something like that, you know? With real, as you said, better than Hollywood, not Hollywood, better than Hollywood type of, you know, cinematography. Talking about this, imagine the Battle of Qadisiyah or something. Imagine Khalid bin Walid having a proper, you know, movie of one of the battles, you know, historically proper, checked by scholars, you know, really done properly, you know what I mean? With disclaimer, hey guys, this is not Khalid, you know, funny guys. This is really not Khalid, okay? Please pay attention. We're gonna say this disclaimer 1,000 times. This guy is not Khalid. He's just an actor. But the story is real, guys, yeah? Yeah, it happens in a lot of movies, right? This has been inspired from history. The characters are fictional, blah, 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 something like that, right? So, but the Muslims themselves, they think that they're, again, I call it holier than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam syndrome. They think that they're more holy than him. And the problem is that look around. Look at what's happening. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, okay, even though we know about poetry and there's a verse, there's a surah, Shura, about the the poets. The Prophet ﷺ had Hassan bin Thabit, who was his own poet. Poetry at that time, the Prophet ﷺ was the main propaganda and media. And the Prophet ﷺ knew how to use it. And as Montgomery Watts says that a poet in the time of Arabia was worth more than 1,000 soldiers because of the propaganda, how he would incite the soldiers for war. He would inspire them. So, today you have the propaganda here. So take it, look at it, bring scholars who understand, make it halal, and do it better. Beat it, do better than Hollywood. We have the money, we have the resources, but we have the skill. We have so many actors who are so good. The people are born to, to act but they start acting into weird stuff because they don't find anything halal. They want to do their best at what they do. We don't give them any opportunity. So yes, I think that there's a lot we can do. I think we can beat Netflix. I don't think it's that great, by the way. I think it can be much better, but it's the only option right now, right? And I think the Muslims are.
I have to admit, I watched the Omar series, and the thing is, it's like now I can connect the events and the people with what I know already, because when you read the books, it's all names, and it can be very confusing because there's names all over, and you don't know which one is which, who's cousins with who is, especially as a new Muslim. Or somebody who's just got to practicing Muslim or learning about the seerah, you're like, okay, who's the bad guy? Is this a good guy or a bad guy? You don't know which one is which. So then, of course, there are liberties taken with that series, but at least it gives me some picture and say, oh, okay, I can place certain events, the timeline. So it does help. But I agree. It's like, my question, I guess, is why, with all this time, we are still, with all the money, with all the time, why are we still catching up? There's many, there's so many attempts before this. It's like so many attempts before this. It's just like Muslim Facebook or Muslim this and Muslim that.
It all failed.
Failed. Yeah. So
of course, because it has to be of a proper quality. Yeah. Right now they have a couple of series where we have Ertugrul, we have Omar, and there's a new one that's called The Imam, about Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal. That's also, one of the series that's out there. But in general, what else do you have? You don't have too much. You don't really have too much. We have the resources, we have the ability, we just don't have the guts to do it, right? Because every time a Muslim is trying to show a historical war movie or something about a hero of Islam who's strong, who's done something, then you find basically that they'll say, oh, they're training terrorists. But every time the non-Muslims are trying to teach about Caesar and Napoleon and Alexander the Great or anything like that, it is just, they're heroes, they're national heroes, they're the pride of the nation, and so on. So double standards are very clear. But the Muslims need to really, man up and have to start telling the world, you know what, we this is our history, and we're proud of it. Imagine they would have a great video, a movie about Tariq ibn Ziyad. A great, there's one about Muhammad Fatih, but it's not, it's coming up right now. There's a series. There's also a movie, 1453, but there's some issues in it. But imagine, more and more things will be out there, to really push. Then our sons wouldn't have to look at the Justice League and Spider-Man and dress up and have Spider-Man pajamas at night. They would have Khalid bin Walid, pajamas or something like that, you know what I mean? Or Omar Khattab or Abdullah bin Zubair or, Tariq bin Ziyad, or these kind of heroes that were really real men. Thor didn't exist. Spider-Man doesn't exist. Batman doesn't exist. Superman doesn't exist. So it's like Santa Claus, we're lying to our children. It's that type of mentality, the world is lying to them and trying to give them someone to follow that they can never be like. And that way it's easy to control because you can never reach that state, right? You can just forget about it.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, I could go on and talking about the media because that's one of the things that I pay attention to. But I think it's time to end the session already. Don't believe there's any more questions. So with that, Jazakallah khair. Maybe one last word. You did mention a couple of times that Islam is the solution, but maybe one last word in terms of how Islam can be the solution when our deen is constantly being challenged and compromised in this century.
Well, again, we have to have confidence. We're kind of not so brave these days, right? If people are brave and they stand up, and more people stand up, and they practice Islam as it is, and it goes to a national level, international level, ummah level, right? Then definitely Islam is going to come back, and it will come back with or without us. The problem is that we're not brave, because we love this dunya. We don't want to be in trouble. And I'm not calling people to be in trouble. I'm not calling people to hurt them. I'm just saying that where are our intellectuals? Where are the people who can debate, who can stand up and say, no, you're wrong. We don't need your system. We have our own and it's better. No, we will create our own things. We will make our own. We are going to produce. The Muslim Ummah is not to destroy the world. The Muslim Ummah is to uplift the world, to produce, to construct, not to destroy. So where are the Muslims in doing that? And I'm not talking about buildings, guys. It's about constructing and building, first and foremost, real men and real women. Okay, yes, the buildings are important, the infrastructures, all these things are good. But the ethics and the morals and the foundations, these are even more important. That's what the world needs in a time where riba, promiscuity, immorality is rampant and is being promoted. It's being properly promoted through these mediums of Netflix and social media. And people are getting desensitized more and more. People are not getting married anymore. People are using all kinds of toys, all kinds of weird stuff. People are not having children anymore. People are in debt like crazy. They're slaves to their own desires, slaves to their systems that are telling them, buy this car, buy this house. Doesn't matter if you cannot afford it. You're going to die anyway. You're going to die with debt, or you're going to lose your job and you're going to be in debt. You're going to declare bankruptcy. You're going to be, it's okay if you're going to feel bad. Just drink some alcohol so you can tune it all out. And if that doesn't work, get some drugs. It's all available, man. You know what I mean? So yes, Islam is the solution to humanity. I'm very 100%. I'm not even, not even 1% doubtful about it. I'm 100% willing to stand up and say that very clearly to the whole world.
Excellent. Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Jazakallah khair, brothers and sisters, for tuning in. I'm Brother Deen. We've been the moderator for today. Jazakallah khair, Shaykh Gabriel, for joining us. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. See you guys tomorrow, where we'll have our final session with Shaykh Yahya Ibrahim from Australia. He will be talking about, in Ramadan, I learned, ... right? Something. Inshallah. So see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.